It's okay.
Was held successfully following our fall magazine, and I would personally like to thank the authors from the winter issue for participating in this webinar. The Ask the Author was developed as part of our strategic plan to give members a chance to interact with the authors and delve deeper into the topics included in each issue by asking questions. I'd like to introduce today's facilitator, Dr. Greg Taranto, a principal at Canonsburg Middle School, and he's also a member of our editorial board, and he is an author in this issue. Greg?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sherry and Paul, for that awesome introduction. And I'd like to thank all the authors here for joining us. It looks like we have 100%, well, looks like we have all authors. Do we have any members on, Sherry, or they should be showing up on the screen, is that correct? If they would be?
No, they'll probably show up in the chat where you can see their questions.
Okay, so we won't necessarily see them, they'll see us.
Correct.
Okay, awesome, great. Again, my name is Greg Taranto. I've been the principal at Cannon Mac, which is about 30 minutes south of Pittsburgh, if you're familiar with that area of Pennsylvania, for 15 years now. So in principal years, that's about 30, right, Paul? I should be able to retire now. So the format today, we'll run through and do our 60-second elevator conversation, summary of your article. So we'll go top to bottom, run it through, and then we'll open it up to questions. If you guys have questions, if anyone of our members have questions, and I actually have some questions myself. I've been a member of the ERB, I think, for like 5 years now, roughly. And it's a pretty awesome experience, and very fortunate to be a part of the board, because we get to see all these wonderful things that principals are doing across the state. And so when you make it into PA administrator, you really capture our attention, and it's something that we want to make sure we're sharing with principals across the state. So again, kudos to everyone who's taken part today, because you did something special by writing a quality piece and wanting to share it with your colleagues across the state. So I'll start out with my article, and I've written a number of articles on various topics, but this is the first time I wrote an article on e-cigarettes or vaping. And a show of hands, can you raise your hand if you're a principal at the middle school or high school level? Okay, so we have a few. Okay. So if you are, you know that there is a disturbing trend with vaping and e-cigarettes. And that captured my attention a few years ago, and prompted me to want to do something to get the word out. Well, what can we do to help stop this disturbing trend? And then how can I then share that with my fellow colleagues to get the word out, to try to hit this up as early an age as possible. And that's why I did some research on vaping. It is something that it's not a coincidence. It's a targeted audience, and our kids are the audience by this industry. And there are ways in which we're obligated to educate not only the kids, but our parents. And that's what my article is about. Okay, what's the problem, and what can we do about it as a school to help educate our students and parents to help counter that problem? So that's what my article is about. And then, so we'll run down the line here. We'll go next to our gifted crew, which I think they're over here to my right here. And if you can give me a summary of your article, we'll move it down the line.
All right, Marcia, I think, are you ready to go with our presentation?
Yeah.
Marcia, if you look up on the screen, up on the top right, you can unmute.
All right.
Okay.
All right. A quick summary of our article.
Because gifted children have unique learning needs, making adjustments to their educational experience not only makes good sense, but also enhances the whole school community. Some ways to do that without breaking the bank include pre-testing to see what students know, then differentiating instruction according to results of that testing, grouping gifted children together in small groups in the classroom, and allowing students to accelerate by subject area. To do these things most effectively, it is crucial that teachers receive professional development. Professional conferences and graduate level work can transform an administrator's or a teacher's view of gifted education from something that districts have to do to something absolutely essential for the growth of gifted children. That's it in a nutshell.
All right, let's move to our East Stroudsburg principal, where he's here, Dr. Petrelli. Is that correct?
Vituli, but that's close enough. Close enough. Yeah, so I am the principal of East Stroudsburg Area Cyber Academy, and for years we struggled with student success. In fact, when I took over the program 5 years ago, our students had a 50-50 chance of passing our cyber courses. Over the years, we've put in some different procedures and things to help and shore that up a little bit better. But most recently, we've implemented a blended program where students come and go throughout the week. We have a particular building that we have secured that allows for some part-time face-to-face support, helping students that are struggling with perhaps certain courses. In addition, we have 4 cyber coaches. We call them coaches or mentors of the students that work here with the students to help guide them and facilitate their learning. So our initial results have been very promising. Our success rate for the first semester of this year, as far as course success, as students passing courses, jumped up to 85%, and our average grades moved up about 13%. In addition, I was unsure about the enrollment and the impact that this requirement would have on enrollment, but our enrollment has just about doubled over last year's highest point. So we're pretty excited about the changes, and that's what I should say, that's what I shared in the article, and I did appreciate the opportunity to do so.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to Mr. Pierce with the invisible principal.
All right. So the idea behind the article was kind of just touch on a couple of things that we've had going that have worked well. Just give a little background. I am a K-12 principal. We are all in one building. We're a small district. We have about 360 students, actually pre-K-12. So, and the things that I wrote about were kind of twofold. We looked at how to improve culture. So we did that through what I guess I'm saying is systematic leadership, and then looking at the school-wide positive behavior interventions and support framework. And we were looking at trying to transform the culture of the district. So the article talks about the steps that we took and how we created a true PLC framework and then implemented those things to get the PBIS up and rolling, but then how it kind of transferred over into more than just behavior. So we thought that if our efforts were, to be significant, that we didn't want it to be just another, fly-by-night initiative. So we assembled a team that we call our core team, and each teacher within the district has to serve on a subcommittee. And then those committees are held to high standards, and they have to set goals, and then they report back to that core team. It's allowed us to have a lot of success with the program. We were recognized for fidelity implementation, and we'll be presenting at the PBIS conference in May. So we're pretty proud of it. So we thought we would share a little bit about it. So.
All right, thank you. And we'll move to Dr. Petting and Dr. Sugar.
Great, thank you. Yes, recently Dr. Sugar and I finished up some research in the area of student engagement and care ethics and caring attributes from middle school teachers. And what we found through that research was that there were basically three themes that emerged. Teachers were able to cultivate high levels of engagement through establishing a caring community, making connections with students, and then just being available to students. Nothing groundbreaking, but it was really neat to see the research that supported what kids were looking for. So there was a piece of the research where we specifically looked and talked to students and what they were looking for, and it wasn't the newest technology or the most up-to-date systems. They were looking for teachers that truly cared about them. So we were able to identify some of those specific attributes that students were looking for, and students reported high levels of engagement because of those attributes. And then the article really frames it in what can we do as building leaders when we're in classroom walkthroughs and classroom observations. Oftentimes, I think it's easy to get caught up in the anticipatory set or the closure or the specific activity that is happening in an observation. Our article makes the argument that we should really be focusing on the relationships that are between our educators and our students.
All right, thank you. Is Ms. Suarez and Dr. Rowe here? Oh, over here, okay.
Hi, how are you? We are from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, the school district of Lancaster, and our article was on how to challenge our English learners to improve their academic discourse. In our district, we serve over 2,000 EL students, 30 different languages. Lafayette Elementary School, which is the school where I'm the principal at and where we piloted the program that the article was based on. We have 7 different languages here at Lafayette, and we are a preschool through grade building. What we were finding across the district and in our building was that we were not able to reclassify our ELs, our English learners, and therefore they were not able to exit the ELD program. We began to dig deeper into the assessments, the PA core standards, the writing rubrics, and really looking further at the TDA progressions from PDE. And what we found was that in order to be able to meet this expected, our students really needed to be able to generate complex sentences, varying sentences in style and length, so that they would be able to obtain the right results. Through some research, both quantitative and qualitative research, what we found was that we really needed to be very deliberate and explicit in teaching the standards, but it was really a core programming issue. It wasn't just about our EL students. We found that all our students needed this skill and that they would benefit from this. So that is what our article is about, and so far we've had some really promising results in the strategies that we've put into place.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our former PE teacher and now current principal, Mr. McGinnis.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Jason McGinnis. I'm currently an assistant principal at Altoona Area High School. I've been a principal for 4 years. I taught here previously to that, taught health and PE. So I've been here for 11 years. But our article, or my article, was about the revamping that we did in a very short period of time with our health and PE curriculum. And we changed it from a focus of essentially calling it health and phys ed to wellness and school wellness. And the reason for that was we looked at our health and PE was focused on a traditional gameplay, competitive games approach. And what we wanted to focus on was lifelong fitness of all of our students and what is actually available within our community. We reached out to my alma mater, Slippery Rock. We also reached out to IUP. We reached Penn State. It was in our backyard. And just wanted to see, what do our kids need to be college and career ready? Because we noticed that over the course of time, in education in general, numbers are declining. But when we looked at health and PE, those numbers were significantly declining. So the number of teachers available were almost non-existent. We looked on a building level, with the focus of ESSA, the impact of standardized testing, with PA Future Ready Index coming out, and how could this all play a factor? It came down to, again, individual health and wellness. We took that approach. We instituted a wellness coach. We also have our literacy coaches, but we took that and made a wellness coach. And what that person does is sit with our students individually as they take their phys ed class throughout the course of a semester, 90 days, and devise individual wellness plans from mental health to social health, physical health. So we kind of touch all those aspects. We took Slippery Rock's motto of pioneering wellness, use that as kind of our lead and what we wanted here, and we came up with the Chase for Wellness. And Chase, each of the letters in Chase stand for challenging the hearts of Altoona students to exercise. And then we kind of took off and ran with that. The bigger thing was, I had a group of phys ed teachers, quite honestly, were bored. They were kind of losing, our veteran teachers were losing their passion to teach. They were kind of getting frustrated with some different things. So we sat down with them. I took my department head and said, we need to change our focus, and we need to revamp and gain that passion back. And through the help with all these individual key players, we were able to do that and our department closer together. But more importantly, our kids are loving it. Over the course of 26 months now, we successfully have not had one kid not dressed for our phys ed classes. So it's been impactful on that end of things too. So overall, it's been great, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback.
All right, thank you. And we're going to move to our one member's voice article, which is Dr. Sopo.
Good afternoon. My article, based upon 32 years of experience, both as a middle school principal, high school principal, assistant superintendent, superintendent of schools, is essentially advocating for a complete, deep rethinking of the model that we use to educate our kids K through 12. If you take a look at history, it goes back to 1865 Prussia. If the goals and expectations that we have for all students in the 21st century are not well served by how we organize teachers, time, and other resources for the educational task, if we really are serious about educating all kids and increasing the probability that all of our students, regardless ESL, gifted, special needs, etc., are to achieve 21st century outcomes like career, college, and or work ready. So what the article makes a case for and then describes a vision, a conceptual model that essentially by school, not by district, but by school, and hopefully by district, can create a system of quality schools for all students. And I'll just leave it there, and we can talk about it.
All right, thank you. And is Ms. O'Brien here? I don't see her. All right. I will move on to Mr. Moyer, who I see is here.
Hi, everyone. I just wrote a really short piece about something that I think is pretty special that we do here. I'm the principal at Rupert Elementary School in Pottstown, where I've been. This is my 14th year as principal here. So something we've been doing since I arrived here, and actually prior to my arrival, is called impact visits. And so what those are is home visitations. We do once a marking period. It's really led by the teachers at this point, and we designate one student at each grade level that we go out and visit their home to acknowledge them. We try to designate students that are not your traditional students, like not the kid that gets straight A's or not the child that's always recognized for things. We try to designate those students that are doing an extra special job in something, maybe not always your straight A student. We go to their house and we recognize them with balloons and an Impact Winter t-shirt and a lot of cool stuff, and make a kind of a big to-do about it. It takes 1 hour, and I'll tell you, it is the absolute best hour of the marking period for me and for everyone that goes. So I highly recommend it. So that's what I wrote about.
All right, thank you. And I see David's name here, DiCaprio. Is he here, though? David, are you here? Okay. David. All right, is there anyone I forgot? I think we got everyone, right? Okay, great. So we're going to open up the questions to our members out there, and we do have a few questions I'm going to ask. I'm going to start off with a question from Mr. John Ross, middle school principal, ERB colleague. How, and this is for Dr. Penning, says, how was that information on engagement received by the teachers? And also, do you have a recommendation or recommendations on how to improve relationships?
All right. Well, first and foremost, John, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. The information on engagement was received well, and that was what was really great about this, the research that Dr. Sugar and I did. There's tons of research out there and literature out there that supports that high levels of engagement automatically relate to basically high levels of achievement. So when teachers could back map that to, okay, well then how are we getting the engagement, and it's coming directly from the students' mouths on what they're looking for, they were very open to the idea. As for the recommendations, again, one of the highlights of the research, it's nothing that costs any money. For example, one of the themes that we found was simply teachers who greet their students at their door causes students want to engage more in the classroom. So simply standing at the door and welcoming every student every single day is very powerful to, in this case, for middle school students, but I would argue to all students. So that would be one simple recommendation that does not cost any money. And it is extremely powerful to walk down the hallways in between classes and see every single educator standing at their door greeting students.
As an ERB member, what caught my attention with your article right away was your opening paragraph. I mean, you go right into talking about how essentially we have this ultra focus on testing and standardized tests. And if we're going to improve schools, we're going to go to standardized tests for that method. And the reality is, there's not, even though we've been doing standardized testing for quite a long time, there's no substantial research to say this is the go-to thing to improve your school. Whereas what you're talking about with you and Dr. Sugar are engagement, relationships, essential. Can you imagine if we could shift some of that money that we're dedicating to testing into the areas of research in which you're talking about, how impactful and powerful that would be. So kudos to you two. Please keep it up and keep getting that word out.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right, let's go with a question, Mr. McGinnis. I have a question for Mr. McGinnis as well. One quick one is, you had received a substantial grant for $10,000 for your spin bikes. I was just curious, can you share who you received that grant from?
Sure. The grant was actually from our local foundation that's run through our alumni association. And once we presented this to the school board, we hosted a community night, and we just kind of wanted to present, here's what we're doing, and we're kind of twisting it a little bit. Our kids are still getting the same outcomes, but just with different activities. And essentially what really tied everybody in was that we made it more community focused. Here's the areas that we could go in the community to go spinning. We have our spinning clubs here, there. We have our gyms that offer this. We have recreational parks that offer this. And really, because we were looking at and focusing on tying in the community and giving our kids these places that they could go, we were able then to tie in other businesses that were like, hey, we want to donate. We want to help you. What can we do to help your program? We like what you're doing. We like what we're hearing. Kind of a combination of all of those things and really just getting that message out. The money came specifically from our foundation, which is run by our alumni. And it was just a matter of some conversations and just, what we wanted to do.
Okay, and a question for you. Did you add any components on mental wellness? If so, were there any students that responded to it, or how well did they respond to it?
Sure. One of the best things that we were able to do was add that wellness coach. The goal of that wellness coach was to kind of be that middle person between the parents at home versus the school counselor, because our school counselors oftentimes get that, negative perception by some children that, I tell them my problems, they're just going to call everyone and sound alarms and things like that. So when we implemented our teacher, our wellness coach, to be kind of that middle ground, it got a little bit more comfortable opening up with that person. This was a fan favorite, so it was strategically placed who that was going to be. But then that person was able to then coordinate with our counselors when those issues arose that we needed to pull them in. So it then became the child developing that trust with that teacher and the team of that child and teacher going to the counselor to solve some of those mental health issues. But then after about the first probably 2 months of getting into this, what we then were able to do was kind of tailor our health curriculum and focus a little bit more on some more prevalent mental health issues, because the things that we were doing were kind of that old adage of this is what we've done because we've always done it. We were able to tailor what we were doing with our health classes and hit on some of those key elements that now our kids are experiencing with mental health. We got 2 of our health teachers, ESAP, Say It trained, so they were then able to kind of pull in the connection with the team there. It kind of all started to intertwine with different counseling components. To answer the second part of that, children were super receptive. I think that, again, the biggest key was that they had that teacher they knew they could trust, but they were okay through conversations with that teacher they could trust of, hey, I'm going to go speak to your counselor and we're going to help you and kind of go the next step forward. So the kids bought into it. I think overall, I guess off the top of my head, we've had about 30 or 40 cases and about 20 of them were successful. And the other 10, were kind of our more challenging ones.
All right, thank you. Dr. Sofo, do you have resources that you recommend for making that move to 21st century learning?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. This will be a non-traditional answer. First, you need courage to rethink everything that you do. 2, if you go to a website that I've put together, www.successistheonlyoption.net, there are resources there. 3, come visit City High in downtown Pittsburgh. It was designed for the 21st century by real teachers. To the relationship research, the school is built on maximizing the probability of positive relationships with every student and teachers. Imagine this, a high school where your core teachers stay with the same students for 4 years. So your math teacher in 9th grade is your math teacher in 12th grade. It forces the concept, the construct, the structure, form follows function, that it places relationships at a key focal point in delivering everything. So please, I suggest all the things that I'm hearing people do, they're great, but here's the metaphor. School bus was designed to take kids from home to school, school to home. In the 21st century, we're asking public schools to take all kids to the moon as far as the outcomes. We never wanted that for all kids back in the 1900s and in the 20th century. We didn't, let's be honest. You can't expect a school bus, even changing the engine, changing the driver, to take kids to the moon. We had to rethink transportation. Yes, a bus is a transportation vehicle, but it's not the right system for the outcomes that we say we want for kids. So that's where the rethinking needs to come from. So all the things that you're advocating for have a higher probability of success in a redesigned system that has a higher probability of creating the conditions, the work conditions and the learning conditions for both teachers and students. The model that I've put together called the 21st Century Promise or Vision puts teaching and student learning at the center. And there's concentric circles and a foundation that is there for people to design at the building and school district level. I'll stop.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Pierce, we have a question for you before I go to our Anita Parker's question. my take on your article. I loved it. Caught my attention right away. When you start talking about the invisible principle, what does that mean? And I think too many times, especially newer principals, they go into the role and they feel like they have to be the center of attention. All ideas have to go through them, and it has to be the total opposite. We want to create as many different leaders or teacher leaders in our building as possible, and we want to be able to walk out of the building and know that everything's going to be running smoothly, and things should be able to run smoothly without you in that building. And it shouldn't be about the principal, it should be about the community. And that's teachers, staff, students, parents. So again, kudos for your article. But our question from our audience here is, as far as your school-wide positive behavior support, it says, we have a core team and plan to implement our ideas in the next school year. I really like the idea of incorporating all teachers in the building by forming a small subcommittee. How did you get the buy-in from your entire staff? And thank you.
Okay. We've been doing this for, I think this is our 4th year now, so it would be a very long answer to go through the whole thing. But I would say that we started, and probably the way we started is why I think it's been successful, but was that there's a book by Dufour that's called Learning by Doing. And basically one of the first questions in that book is, why do we exist? And you should kind of develop a mission statement. And so we did that with the core team when we started. And so we kind of said, why are we doing this? And is it worthwhile? And and that was with, all the teachers from the initial team in the room. And then we kind of went from there and said, well, this can be more than just about positive behavior support. We can look at the whole school through this committee. And then we had, so we created committees that we thought needed to be in place. And then from there, the teachers were able to choose which committee best fit them. And we tried to make that work to the best of our ability. So for instance, we have a public relations committee. So they are just focused on getting our word out there about the positive things that we're doing. And we have a few people they're amazing at that. That would not be my forte. So those are the kinds of things that we did to make sure that people were on board with it. And then, I'm not going to say we hit speed bumps every day. We're trying something new coming this Monday because the high school level, we sometimes struggle with student buy-in actually more than teacher buy-in because, trying to find the things that are motivating for them. So we're going to try to start this competition-based thing on Monday, and we hope it works, but we know that we may fail epically, and then we have to hit the reset button. So that's kind of what we've done. So.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Healy, who has a question.
Yes, good morning, everybody. This is Paul Healy, Executive Director of the Principals Association. First of all, let me take this opportunity to thank you all for your submissions for our winter issue of the Administrator. As most of you know, our articles are done by practitioners for our members as well, and it really helps to give them some concrete, practical ideas to implement, as well as stretching their thinking. So again, thank you all for your submissions, and by the way, keep them coming. We love them. My question has to do, I actually have 2 questions, so I'll come back with another one a little bit later. My first one is in reference to Greg's article on vaping. Last legislative session, House Bill 97 was introduced, which would actually treat vaping the same as tobacco. And actually passed the House unanimously, but then it just kind of stalled from there. It was just recently reintroduced, and my understanding is right now that it's in front of the Judiciary Committee. So my question has to be, in light of you all waiting for some teeth to actually do something about vaping in the schools, what are you doing as far as vaping is going and how you're treating them in the schools, absent some legislative help on that? And secondly, for our elementary folks, and I think we have a few of them on our call today and on the panel, I'm really interested in knowing from your perspective in the elementary schools, Have you seen vaping there as well? Have you confiscating vaping? And how low has it gone at this point? So I'll open it up for those two parts.
All right, thank you, Dr. Healy. Yes, I was keeping an eye on that, and hopefully the lobbyists aren't causing too much influence on our legislatures as far as that decisions making is concerned. But what we're doing here, again, priority one is education, educating the student body. And that I house grades 7 and 8. I have a little over 800 students, well, 850 in my building. So our goal is to educate every single one of those kids, starting in 7th grade, and we hit them up again in 8th grade. That's done through a class called Middle School Issues, which is a 6-week class. Our guidance counselors teach. They talk about a number of different topics in their middle school issues related, peer pressure, cyber issues. They also hit up vaping in this category. So educating kids that it's more than water vapor, educating them about the tactics that are used to try to bring them into using these devices, these things, and understanding that even the vaping juices that indicate that they're nicotine free are not nicotine free at all. And explaining and educating them on how addictive nicotine is to them. What's alarming is, we had athletes vaping thinking, okay, that would never think about picking up a cigarette and using cigarette, but thinking, okay, I'm going to vape because it's water vapor. So it crossed over to different demographics that we never thought of would have crossed over before. So that's what brought it was alarming no matter who it was, but we saw as a problem. So we wanted to make sure we're educating our kids in that regard. We have school-wide messaging. So you see anti-vaping posters and messages in the bathrooms and throughout the halls. Our students do a great job of doing morning announcements with a green screen behind them. So we play on a regular basis the PSA anti-vaping ads from the FDA. So they'll play that 15, 10 or 15, 20 second little PSA out there. So they'll see that. So constant messaging of the detriments of vaping. We push out information to our parents via meetings and via email blasts about vaping, what it is, why it's more than, it's not just water vapor. So, and obviously we do have some natural school consequences in that regard. And we have a magistrate actually that are supporting us. So we have repeat offenders. Not only do they have a school consequence, not only do we do a one-on-one vaping education session with the student, but they actually will go to the magistrate, and he's been assigning community service for repeat offenders in that regard because it's nicotine based. So it's a community effort, it's a team effort, and we're kind of behind, but I think we're catching up in that regard. Now we're getting the attention of politicians and understanding that, hey, our kids are being targeted here and it's just not right. But thank you.
How about from our elementary folks? Have you seen it at the elementary level?
I met with our elementary principals a month or so ago, did a presentation of vaping, and they have not seen it up through 6th grade as of yet in our district. We have a large district, so that's a good thing. It seems like they're starting to experiment around that 7th grade year and on. So not saying it's not happening, because it is hard to detect and catch them using it, but as of right now, we're not having any evidence that they're using it at a younger age, at least in our district.
For our district, we're not seeing it at the elementary level, but I think it's critical for us to keep informed, to be proactive, to educate the staff members, because our schools are a reflection of society, really, and our students are exposed via their siblings, older cousins, family members that are currently vaping. So we want to make sure that we are being proactive in our messaging and that we're informing ourselves. And that's been the approach that we've been taking in the school district of Lancaster.
Great, thank you. So I'll move to my second question, and it has to be to the authors of the Gifted Education. It was a great article. Thank you so much for that, with some really practical ideas that we all know about that brought it to the surface, as well as the importance of training future educators in this field, especially now that we know that we're looking at certifications a little bit differently, especially the special education certification going to K to 12 and what will be needed for that. So from a regulatory standpoint, though, when we're looking at revisions to Chapter 16, what do you see as helping changing some of those regulations that would assist both in the identification, implementation, and support for gifted students for the future?
I don't know who wants to take this question.
How about I can start. I have
Sure,
a couple of
please.
one of the things I think we need is universal screening, and earlier rather than later. That would help find all kinds of needs for our students, not just our gifted, but also for the struggling students as well. So that's one of the things that I'm hoping that will be in the future. Okay.
So this is Simony St. Clair. I'm out in the southwest part of the state. And so actually they just had 3 roundtable meetings across the state, and we just got their PDE's recommendations for gifted. So that was sent out in a pen link. So hopefully some of your administrators might be able to see that. And then also while at PDE, the gifted liaison person has changed. That is now Shirley Moore. And so now she's still trying to get her feet wet a little bit, but us as PAGE, which is the Pennsylvania Association for Gifted Education, has really tried to step up and started to offer professional development besides our yearly conference around the state. Next year, it will, in November, it will be in Harrisburg, and then it will be out east after that, the year after that. So hopefully, some of those things, we have a conference coming up in May in Erie, and then we also have in April, we have one in Allentown coming up. So those are some things that we're trying to do for some professional development for teachers, parents, and students.
Thank you.
I would just add briefly, one example that we used in the article was grouping gifted students together. Such an important and such a very easy thing to do within a school. We know that gifted kids do well if they are with intellectual peers, but another important thing that happens when we group gifted kids together is that the students who are maybe just a hair below that, who are students who maybe are reluctant to give an answer because that gifted kid is always going to be the one that gives the answer. If you have your gifted kids working together, those other students become more confident and will rise to the top. So that's why some of these recommendations that in our article and other recommendations that Paige makes are no cost cures to some of the typical problems. And let me clarify that we certainly don't mean group together always for all things, but for, certainly sometime during the day that should happen. It just makes good educational sense according to the research.
Yeah, I see Mr. O'Brien joined us. Hi. Do you mind giving us a quick summary of your article for the group?
My name is Mindy O'Brien. I'm the assistant principal here at Spring Grove Area Middle School here in South Central PA. So my article basically consisted of a case study or a presentation on flipped classrooms. So I don't know how familiar anyone is with that term, but basically we have a one-to-one iPad initiative here at our middle school. 7th and 8th graders, about 625 kids. One of our 7th grade teachers does what's called a modified flip. So what happens is all of the instruction that would normally occur in the classroom the direct instruction occurs out of the classroom via the technology. So she uses, Google Classroom and other varied kind of Schoology as like a housing place for her materials that the students access. And then when they come into the classroom, she may use a formative assessment of some kind. So like a Socrative, again, I'm not sure how familiar anyone is with kind of different apps, et cetera, or some kind of handwritten formative assessment on a particular topic. And then she breaks the kids down into groups based on how familiar or how much they've mastered that particular piece of content. And really the quick way to explain a benefit of it is that you take out the direct instruction piece. So the students using the technology we provided are getting the direct instruction and being able to come into the classroom ready for her to give more individualized attention and more customized, instruction to particular students that need it. Again, kind of connected to what you guys are saying, whether they be gifted students that need enrichment or furthering. So those kids are not tutoring other students. Those kids are not being asked to, help other students. They're getting what they need as far as pushing them further in the content. And she also has time to address students that aren't getting a particular piece of content on a more individualized basis. So that's kind of the quick synopsis of the article itself. I hope that was what you were.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Sure.
Turn it back to Dr. Healy, see if he has any other questions.
No, I'm good right now. Thanks.
All right, I can open up now to our other authors. If you have anything you want to ask of one another, No? All right. Okay, Sherry, do you have anything?
Hi, Greg. And now I don't have any questions for anyone, but I did notice that we have all authors joining us, but Dr. Abendanza and his co-author haven't joined, and I didn't know if you to join. You're laughing.
Well, I'm laughing because that's a colleague of mine, and he actually walked in late, Sherry. He's actually over here to my right. So if he didn't want to go on camera, can I pull him on camera?
Yes, because I thought that was a very interesting article, and I was just, wanted to hear a little more if he was going to do a summary. I thought everybody might hear about it.
Peer pressure. Good job.
Peer pressure.
Sorry.
How is everyone? Sorry, I came a little bit late, and Dr. Taranda was already on, and I didn't want to jump behind his shoulder. So can I just share a little bit about my article?
Sure.
Okay, so taking off with quadcopters, went to a conference and learned from actually the Pennsylvania Principal Association Conference with Dr. Ziegler, and he was flying a little mini drone called a Parrot Mambo, and that's kind of where the idea sparked from. So what we did was, my gifted support teacher, Christine Seal, who co-authored, we came up with an idea to pilot, no pun intended, the Parrot Mambos with a small group of kids, which was about 12 kids in our gift support program of 6th graders. We wanted to see if this would be a nice challenge for kids to incorporate coding at the intermediate level. The school that I'm principal of is a 5-6 building. So what we did is we had the idea to start small to see if it would challenge kids, and we found that it was a very useful program in it's a program called Tinker, very inexpensive for anybody that's looking for a coding program. It offers anywhere from 5th grade up into 8th grade, the program that we bought. For 450 students, it was very cost effective, about $1,900. And so there's a course in there called Drones 101. And with the Parrot Mambos, which are very inexpensive, they're $100, it allows kids to program. And we did simple block coding for the visual aspect of it, but you can also do Java, and it goes up to Python for older kids. So our grade span 5-6, they're not ready for the Java or the Python. So so what we did was we bought 10 Parrot Mambo drones, we bought 10 mini iPads, and we ended up integrating it into our 5th grade science. We made a 12-week unit, and teachers really took off with it. So we got our 4 science teachers on board, and what they did was they created, they went through the Tinker program as teachers, which is a series of simulations, and then they designed what we call at our school missions to go along with the theme of the program. So kids are coding, but beyond the coding is what our big thing is with my co-author is we believe that not every kid's going to be a computer scientist when they get older. So what we're targeting is soft skills. So the teamwork, the collaboration, the perseverance, the problem solving, just to name a couple of them. That's what we're really targeting with our age range, 5th and 6th grade, because we know out of 450 kids, a very small percentage of those kids is probably going to end up being a computer programmer. And I think what happens with coding, again, this is my personal opinion, is, you know, it's big right now in K-12 education, but I think we need to step back sometimes as educators and realize that any job that we prepare kids for is really going to require soft skills. So we say the coding part, what we're doing with the Parrot Mambas and the coding is valuable, but we say the soft skills is essential. So, and we found a lot of benefit. Teachers loved it. The Parrot Mambo, what they offer for kids of a 5th graders are 10 years old on the average. It's such a high interest for kids. So we found it to be very beneficial. So then in our 6th grade, they're using Tinker, but they're basically just with screen time right now on Tinker, going through a program that we picked. So next year, what we're looking to do is add the hands-on component where, you know, something robotic that kids can program. That's where the high interest comes in with the Parrot Mambo. But if you read the article, very cost-effective. You can buy all the equipment. And what we do is in 5th grade, to be cost-effective, is we have 4 teachers, and each teacher has a designated STEM day. And what that is that the 10 Parrot Mambos and the 10 iPads travel with that teacher that particular day. So all the kids have Chromebooks. They can all do the simulations and the programming part of it on the Chromebook outside of the STEM day. But when it comes to carrying out the missions, that happens on their STEM day. We use all spaces in the building. You can use hallways, classrooms, gym. And then a neat feature kind of at the end after they've learned how to do it is they create an obstacle course. Kids absolutely loved it. Again, great opportunity, inexpensive. So you're hitting the coding part, but essentially you're hitting the soft skills.
So Mark, this is Dr. Healy again.
How are you?
If you haven't done so yet, I would encourage you. This would be a great presentation at either our lead conference or our educational summit. You should consider doing a proposal for one of those conferences, and we can take a look at that. And selfishly, I will tell you, I bought my first drone about 2 years ago. On the second flight, I flew it high in the tree. So
there you go. Yeah.
Still waiting for the wind to blow it down so I could use the help in the coding and the flying. So.
And the other important thing about this too is the 4 teachers that we got on board. We started small. That's why we piloted it, and then we started with the science teachers, and you know their level of coding is minimal. Okay, because we're talking about teachers in their 30s and even 40s. But when you put that Parrot Mambo drone and they go through the Tinker program, the simulations, they're learning just like a 10-year-old's going to learn. Those teachers were so interested. And so when we did that with the teachers, we automatically knew that a 10-year-old was going to love it. They absolutely love it. The Parrot Mambos are $100, very durable. Again, we had 230 kids use 10 Parrot Mambos. They shared them. And all those drones still work. The only thing, you sometimes have to replace propellers, but other than that, durable. You know, we're only on year 1, but next year we're going to buy another class set, so just add to it. But $6,000 for something that is a pretty good investment for something that's high interest for kids.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to give the chair back if there's no questions to Dr. Turano. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Abadianza. Any other questions from the audience before you wrap up? Doesn't look like it. Well, I'd like to thank Sherry and Dr. Healy and the association for hosting and all the authors here. It's been a great experience, and keep those articles flowing in and sharing what your best practices. Because that's how all of us can learn and from each other and create great opportunities for our kids.
Thank you, everyone. This is Sherry and Dr. Healy, and we just wanted to again thank everyone for participating. And we did record today's session, and I'm going to make sure that a copy is sent to the authors who participated as well as the editorial review board. Thank you again, and I hope that for the theme issue, the articles have already been selected, and that issue will go out about the second week in May, third week. So probably early June, we'll be doing another one of these. And this time, maybe you can join us as an attendee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.